This is the Ford Figo S. Abarth's, N-Lines, Polos have all taken the spotlight. What needs more recognition is the Ford Figo S. Why does it need more recognition? That's because of this engine. This is a 1.5 TDCI engine. Stock, it makes 98 horsepower and 215 Newton meters of torque, which might not sound like a lot of power, but trust me, if you've driven 1.5 TDIs or 1.6 TDIs, this thing, I would say, is better than them. That's because this just feels much more powerful. The torque curve is insane, and once you start tuning it, this thing is a proper monster. Stage 2 from Wolf Motor Performance gives you 134 horsepower and over 300 Newton meters of torque. Now this particular car has been tuned by Quantum Tuning or Black Box Performance. It's running a stage 1 ECU tune with a BMC drop-in air filter, and right now the power figures of the car are roughly around 126 horsepower and 270 Newton meters of torque, which is quite a lot only for a stage 1 tune.
TDH verified Polos alert. If you are looking for a fun punchy hatch, I've got two super clean low mileage Polos that might just be perfect for you. First up, we have this Polo GT TSI. 1 litre turbo automatic, runs just 21,000 kilometers. It's efficient, it is very smooth, and the perfect hatch for the city. Or are you searching for something more engaging? Well, we've got this listed, a Polo 1 litre TSI Highline that has the same punchy turbo engine, but it has the added benefit of a manual. Both are TDH verified, clean AF and ready to hit the road. So which one is your pick? Automatic convenience or manual thrills? Don't wait too long because these are not going to last. So hit us up on this number or head on to thedriversup.com/TDH Classifieds and get yourself the car of your dreams.
I really don't understand why people did not buy the Ford Figo S. I feel that literally every other hatchback in the segment, let it be the Abarth, let it be the Polo GT and whatever else, Baleno RS, whatever you want to take into consideration in this segment, I feel everything else is just a little bit overrated, or maybe just the Figo S is so underrated. This thing handles like nothing else in the segment. If you think an N-Line or an Abarth handles very well, drive a Figo S. This is a completely different level in my opinion, at least stock out of the box. Whenever you take a turn, whenever you take a corner hard, this thing just goes. I mean, it's like it's handling on rails. And this 1.5 TDCI engine never runs out of puff in my opinion. Stock, it makes 98 horsepower and 215 Newton meters of torque, but with just a simple stage 1 tune, this car is now making 121 horsepower and 270 Newton meters of torque, and that is just scratching the surface of what this engine and this platform can do. Ford EcoSports and even normal Figos, for the matter of fact, get this 1.5 TDCI engine, and Stage 2 Plus with an intercooler and a downpipe. This thing makes some amazing power. Honestly, this engine, this chassis, and almost everything about this engine is so overlooked. And I think so it's time the Figo gets the recognition that it deserves. Cars like these are very scarce nowadays, and this is proper driving pleasure. If you want a car which gives you the handling of a proper little hot hatch and still gives you fuel economy, because I'm absolutely thrashing this car right now, yet it's still giving me 14 kmpl, and I'm basically completely on the throttle or off of it. There's no in between. And this thing gets into the triple digit speeds unlike any other diesel hatchback that I've driven. It is properly fast. And since this is the Figo S, of course it gets a couple of differences compared to a normal Figo 1.5 TDCI. The wheels are different, the suspension is different, and just the overall handling of the car is just so much better than a normal Figo. And the Figo in it of itself is such an amazing handling car that the Figo S is just that much better. This suspension feels a little bit stiffer. The turn in and the steering feedback of the car also has improved as a matter of fact. And yeah, this is just a proper driving delight. Some complaints that I have, the clutch is super duper stiff. I mean, I've driven 2-liter TDIs from VW and all, and those have pretty stiff clutches, but this is on a completely different level. And the other complaint that I have is probably the gearbox slotting is not the best. Sometimes you do miss a slot, or it's a little difficult to get it into gear. But apart from that, this thing drives like a proper little hot hatch. But of course you will feel the difference between a normal Figo and a Figo S because of the differences in the driving dynamics and the suspension. But what if you see one driving down the road? How will you figure out if it's a normal Figo or a Figo S? So how do you differentiate a normal Ford Figo from a Ford Figo S? Well, the differences are very subtle, but they do make a difference in the way this car looks. First of all, in the front, you have a honeycomb grille, which gives it that sporty touch. On the side, you get a different design on the wheels. This particular car is running Ultra Contact 6 tires from Continental, so gets a little bit of extra grip as well. Some of the components around the body are blacked out, like this trim piece over here, the mirrors, the roof, and at the rear you get a little spoiler as well. Overall, the differences between a Ford Figo S and a normal Figo aren't that big, but once you start driving it, that's when you can really feel the difference, because the suspension setup of the Ford Figo S is different compared to any other Figo that was sold during that time. The interior of the Figo is very different compared to interiors you get in hatchbacks nowadays. Hatchbacks nowadays prioritize, all of these stupid features that no one really uses: AQI, heads-up display, voice assistance, and random stuff which is of absolutely no use. The Figo's interior is super utilitarian, very minimalistic, and overall it's just very easy to use as well. I mean, everything is a tactile button. There's none of that touchscreen nonsense going on. In fact, you don't even get a proper touchscreen in the middle, because this is, if I'm not wrong, the pre-facelift Figo, or not the highest trim Figo S that you could get. You do get a Figo which gets an Apple CarPlay and Android Auto screen, but this is not that model, and this is just very bare basics, bare bones. You get a little infotainment system in the middle which has FM, AM, and a Bluetooth system. You get your AC controls in the middle, which are super easy to use, proper knobs, none of that touchscreen bullshit. The instrument cluster in the middle is also very bare basic. You get a tachometer, speedometer, and your fuel gauge. You get a little digital screen in the middle which flicks through a couple of different menus which shows you your fuel consumption, your range, and a bunch of other stuff. But overall, the Figo's interior is nothing really to talk about. In fact, it's very plasticky on the inside, which I don't really mind considering how cheap you can get these cars nowadays. And some cool little design feature is that the door lock is actually the door handle itself. In some cars you get your door lock over here, or it's a little latch over here, but the door handle in this car, it's the lock itself. Push it in and the door is locked. And one more good thing about the Figo's interior is that the rear passenger actually has leg space, which a lot of hatchbacks in this particular segment didn't really have, which is a big thumbs up. But one thing that I do have to complain about are the seats. The bolsters of the seats are pretty much non-existent, and considering how hard this car can corner, I think so a seat upgrade is much needed. The Ford Figo S is an unsung hero in the hatchback segment. While cars like the Polo, Abarth and i20 N-Line often hog the spotlight, the Figo S remains a hidden gem. This pint-sized powerhouse offers a great driving experience, impressive economy and the perfect tuning platform for beginners at an affordable price. However, with Ford's exit from the Indian market a couple of years ago, potential buyers must be wondering, is it still a good idea to purchase a second-hand Ford Figo S? So should you buy a Figo if you're looking for a small little diesel hatchback? If you ask me, 101% yes, because this is an amazing car to drive. It's very practical, gives amazing fuel economy, and it can actually seat 4 people in relative comfort. So what are the things that you should look out for? Well, as most of you guys know, Ford has exited India a couple of years back. So do you really need to be scared about spare parts, servicing this car, or are there any major issues that the Figo suffers from? No, not at all. Ford's spare parts in India are still pretty strong. Ford service centers are still alive. They're pretty much alive and kicking. There's no problem in terms of spare parts, and in terms of the car itself, well, there's not much to go wrong. The engine is very reliable. There's nothing really wrong on the inside. There aren't much electronics to go wrong. So this is a pretty solid car for the money. So what sort of price should you keep in mind while buying a Ford Figo or a Ford Figo S? Well, probably a Figo S will go for a little bit more money, maybe 5.5 lakhs, maybe even 6 lakhs if it's a really good one with a couple of mods on it. But relatively speaking, all Ford Figos 1.5 TDCI should be roughly around anywhere between 3.5 lakhs to 5 lakh rupees is what you should be paying for this particular car. If you get a newer model which has the bigger infotainment system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, well, maybe that might garner a little bit more money, but overall these cars are relatively cheap in the market. Same money as a 2015, 2016 Polo TDI or a GT TSI. So if you compare them to those cars, I think so this car drives better, in my opinion looks better as well, because it's just so unique and there aren't a lot of these cars around, so definitely stands out in the hatchback segment. Overall, a big thumbs up from my side, and I think so you should definitely buy a Ford Figo S. That is if you come across one, because these cars are very rare to find. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Let us know in the comments down below what you think of the Ford Figo S, and I'll catch you in the next one.